Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hanson, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all on this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty. Well, hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. How are you tonight? This is Rick Hanson, your host for the Don't Die Rusty podcast, of course. And if you watched any of our social media last week, which would have been, now I don't even have my calendar, what day was
January
that, Katy?
18th.
January 18th. You would have saw that I was over at a Norse festival by Buffalo, Wyoming. And Katy Giles here is part of the TA Ranch. She's the third generation. Did I say Giles right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, you got it right the first time.
Woo! So anyway, but at Don't Die Rusty, we try to think out of the box. And we try to go do things that are different that we have never been to. And so my wife Cindy and I went over to the Fire and Ice Festival, and then we met a lot of people, and it was a fun time. And I got lucky enough to meet Katy, and we're going to talk about a bunch of things that the TA Ranch has going on, a little bit about the Fire and Ice Festival, and there's more things going on at the TA Ranch too. So I'm going to let Katy introduce herself, and then we're going to have a conversation.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate you having me on the podcast. And we had so much fun on Saturday. And I was so busy literally putting out dog fights and fires, literal fires, that we didn't get to talk. So it's, I'm really excited to talk to you now. But kind of to describe myself, is that I'm the third generation on the ranch, and I've recently returned within the last 3 years. And this is a multi-family generational ranch. So we have all of our family living here. We've got my grandma and grandpa, my mom and dad, and my brother and I. And we're all kind of doing this ranch thing together. And there's lots of different things going on with them having a family business. So if you get to see and look into our business, you get to see every generation kind of happening in tandem with each other. And it's just, it's a lot of fun. And a challenge. And that's kind of how the Fire and Ice got going, is how you kind of have with Don't Die Rusty, is the doing new things and having new challenges. And that was kind of the big thing for us too, is we were fighting over changing wallpaper with my grandma. She was really attached to her wallpaper. So we came to the conclusion that all of the events and all the things that we started doing was just an exercise on doing crazy and wild things so that grandma and grandpa are never shocked with the next big thing. Well, they're like, you want to do what? And then now they're like, okay, here's my credit card.
Well, it was really, I have to say, for one thing, and this isn't to give you a big head or anything, but you organized it very well, and it was well put on. It was some events you go to and you go, what in the heck is going on here? But you put on a great event there. I can tell you that Cindy and I will be back. And here's the funny thing, it was interesting because I had friends that were watching. When we got there, I never showed anything what was going on. I did a little video for us and saying we're here. And then at the end, I put one on, and Cindy had her face painted, and they thought that she got into a dog fight herself, because there's a little black on her face. And it was kind of funny. But then there was people wondering what the heck we were doing. And then I made that little reel, and then they said, I want to go to that next year. So that's the very cool thing about this, because now on the way home, I'm looking for roadkill. So I have a little coyote fur or something to come back looking like a Viking.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, if you want to come shoot coyotes, you come out here, because right now we're trying to tamp that population down. It's insane, but And that's a big thing is like when you kind of tell people, what the event is, it's really difficult to kind of describe all of the different activities we had because really for us, like, and I think a lot of people have experienced this. We had a bad kind of consecutive years after COVID. I mean, like we had a really hard time kind of like getting back into our rhythm, and we got into a couple of ruts. And so there was a point for 2023 where we were like, this year was so bad, we're gonna have to like burn it in flames.
Yeah.
And to some degree, we literally had to burn it down in flames. So that's kind of where the origin came from for the Fire and Ice is like, what's the craziest thing that we can do that we're going to have fun no matter what if we put it on? And then kind of like a clearinghouse of just getting rid of the old and coming into the new year. And the best part about all of this was I didn't understand. Well, first of all, I didn't even know if this was possible because when you're like, are there fire performers in Wyoming? Is there ice carvers in Wyoming? You don't really think that these people kind of exist. And then all of a sudden you start kind of like connecting with people, and then they come out from the woodworks, and then they're like, well, in my off time, I do mounted archery. And I'm like, okay, this is just wild. And so every year, as all event people know, events come together and then they also fall apart at the same time. So for our second year, I'm just grateful that we put it on because it was like 11 degrees. Yeah. But it was, I mean, and the thing is too, is like every time we put on the event, people they want to come. We have people who consistently come and show up and want to make sure that it happens. And they're as invested into the event because it's bringing a community together. And that's not just like our town of Buffalo. It's a bunch of people with interests who have a Nordic heritage or a Viking heritage, or also had a really bad 2023 or 2024. And they're like, it's time to burn this thing to the ground. So,
Yeah, and it was interesting too because we sat by a lady that bought lefse, and she was handing it out and letting people eat it. I have to tell you this one thing, that everybody was friendly and everybody's having fun and everybody's enjoying this event that you guys put on. It's different when people aren't having fun, but everybody's there having fun. So I walked up to one of the fellows that had a horn he was drinking out of, and I said, here's the deal. I've never walked up to a fella and asked, can I take a picture of you with your horn? And the wife just busted out laughing. And, if you get to know people, and it was funny in that aspect, everybody's friendly. You guys are organizing it so well. And, like a day like today here in Spearfish, South Dakota, I mean, it's blizzarding and it's crazy, 45 mile an hour winds. But we woke up on Saturday, and Cindy said, let's go. And I said, well, that's what we wanted to do. And the people that came from all over Wyoming, too. They came from Warland and Cody and Billings and all over. And I hope more people will think about going over next year from South Dakota because it was a wonderful event.
And we would love that because I think that's the big thing about this is it's a true kind of like Nordic Viking festival. The idea is that you've got tribes and clans, and you travel and you come together and you kind of celebrate. And that's why we have kind of the weightlifting competition as well, because in our hometown, we really wanted to bring together a whole series of different types of groups. So we've got like gym bros who are like big heavy lifters teaching like the Pokemon card guys how to deadlift, and they're all loving it, and everybody's dressing up and everybody's having a good time. And then you just start bringing in all of these different people that I just don't think in normal society would have thought that they would have had things in common. And so that's kind of like the whole thing that we're trying to accomplish is having everybody do all sorts of different kinds of things, come from different regions, bring them together, and then do something where like January is very isolating in our area. The weather can be bad. It's dark. It's cold. From a ranching perspective, we're just trying to make sure everything is surviving. I just saw this video of a friend of ours the other day. He's like, another cold day. And next week, it's going to be another cold week. And then the week after that, it'll be another cold week. So I also have like 2 dogs that I'm just trying to like keep quiet as well. And that's just like us in general. It's like a menagerie of people and things out here. So anyways.
Well, Cindy said that one, one of your dogs, when she was right up against your leg when you were announcing winners, I think the other day, that was just amazing how good your dogs were.
Oh, that's yeah. I've had that dog for 11 years, and
Huh?
she's a Pomeranian Border Collie mix.
Huh?
And you're like, how did that happen? I don't know. I don't know, but we've done the genetic testing to, she's a survivor. she's
Yeah.
a, she's just one of those types. So
But she's a good dog, and right, I couldn't believe how she was not going to let you go.
yeah, and that's the crazy thing too is we've got all different types of dogs. So my mom's got these like giant 150-pound Akbash dogs, like her livestock guardian dogs, and then we've got like it's an Anatolian Shepherd mix. They're just phenomenal. And then we have my mutt, who's we call her the window licker. She's really good at licking windows.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
No, so here's the deal too. I should have went into this earlier when you were talking about it, and then I get off track. But people know that I do that. But the cool thing is when you do this Fire and Ice Festival, like you were just talking, except for this year, which the wind was blowing and you couldn't have a fire. It's a good time to let the last year go and invite the new year in. And that's another good thing. And like you said, you had so many different people, but everybody's friendly and helping everybody else out. Like you said, the gym bros
Yeah.
to the, yeah,
Well, and
yeah,
we've got like we had people who were a part of like motorcycle clubs who came, and so we've got ranchers, and so these are guys who are like their weightlifting is literally hay bales, right?
yep, yep,
And that's their regimen, and and so it's just tons of different, like, you don't have to have an interest to have commonality, right, and this thing, or to have a good time. And the best part about this event is it kind of allows you to like be in a judgment free kind of a zone, because you can't take yourself too seriously. That's like why you come to these events, because if you go in there thinking that, I mean, everybody's just there to have a good time, try something new. And I think it's because nobody's done something like it before, that nobody has any kind of expectation. So they're there kind of for like the journey and the ride that they don't even know what to expect,
yep.
And for us too, we're kind of like, yeah, we don't know what's going to happen this year. And that's the other thing. We have the aerialists and the fire performers and stuff like that. You just have fun, right? And that's the whole point of the whole thing is good music. Mead, by the way, has like some of the highest alcohol content.
Oh,
And last year, first year that we did it, they kept telling everybody, they were like, watch out. This mead is crazy. You gotta be careful. And nobody believed him. Halfway through the event, we were like, holy cow, what? We were like, this fire is awesome. Everything was awesome. It was so, it was way too much fun. So this
I
year,
believe that.
everyone's like, okay, we got to watch it on the mead. Everybody did a
Mm,
really good job. But we stayed, even though it was like 11 degrees, we stayed really warm. I mean, we had a heated tent. I mean, it was bearable, right? Wyoming in 11 degrees. We're tough people. That's also kind of like how this event started, is our family heritage. We come from a Nordic Danish heritage. And so if you've ever watched 1883 or the
yep.
Yellowstone series, we're not the cool version of Yellowstone. We're the pioneers that got bit by rattlesnakes and died, primarily going to the plains of Montana, and that's kind of how we settled. And it's like, it's going to be cold, and you're used to the cold, and we work through the cold. So for us, for a lot of the people there, everybody said that even though it was 11 degrees, kind of like how the tents were set up and the events were set up, I mean, everybody really got by and managed and felt pretty warm. I mean, you go in, it's a winter event. You go in, you get cold, you come in, you drink mead, and then you don't care anymore.
Yeah, and you know what? When you're out of the wind, it wasn't bad. I have to agree with you there. And the other thing, we'll get into the history of the TA Ranch, and everybody knows you're the third generation, but I'm a little disappointed. I'm going to tell you because I was hoping that you would have some Beth Dutton one-liners since you're the prodigal daughter, granddaughter that comes back. You know, like
Yeah,
you
right.
know.
And you know what the crazy thing is like we've got an attorney in the family. So like if you want to talk about Yellowstone, we've got all of the bad traits. And I leave the Beth Dunn one-liners to my mom. She's like the Beth Dunn person in the family. I'm more of like the I don't know what my character would be yet.
Well, I was just hoping to get some of those one-liners in here on this episode. So,
I'll tell you what, yeah, we'll have to get to know each other a little bit better because we're like pretty crazy. So
all right,
it'll come out eventually, I promise.
all right. Well, anyway, you did that event, and I know the TA Ranch has a history in Wyoming, in the Buffalo area. Do you want to tell us you can tell us whatever history you want to tell us that we don't know, that we can't read.
Yeah,
Or tell us what we can read.
yeah, I mean the amazing thing about this entire area is how much history there actually is. And the best part about the Johnson County War is, and of course, this is like the owner's right. We own the TA Ranch. It's a historic property. The history is near and dear to our hearts. So I'm going to tell you how important it is, but take it with a grain of salt, okay?
Yeah.
But it really did. It shaped the West and changed the West forever, and it doesn't get a lot of attention to it. And if you guys have ever seen the movie Shane, which is one of my favorite Western films, I mean, it's just about the Johnson County War. And really, it was about who could basically own cattle in the West. And it's kind of a tale as old as time. It's about big money, big business. You know, they had the Wyoming Stockgrowers Association that was trying to control who could own cattle. And it was preventing smaller cattle owners, kind of like homesteaders, who were kind of challenging not only property rights, but and I have to be careful because, by the way, there are direct descendants still living in Buffalo, Wyoming from the Johnson County War. So you're going to post this and everybody's going to leave awful comments about how I didn't get it right. But there was a lot of right and wrong on both sides. I mean, on the homesteader cowboy side, there was, wrestling happening. And, on the Stockgrowers Association, there was, some assassinations happening.
Yep.
And I mixed up association and assassination. But anyways, it's and that's kind of the thing. And so when our family came here, primarily TA Ranch was used for agricultural purposes only. So the buildings were not, I would say, seen for its historical value. And that's what my grandpa and grandma really wanted to do, was make sure that this piece of history was preserved. So they started restoring, and it's an intact Wyoming territorial homestead that's been here since 1880 essentially. And the buildings from the Johnson County War that have the bullet holes from that 3-day skirmish are here with the original barn. And it's also very cool because we've brought the old sheriff that was ousted, Frank Hanson. His cabin is here. He lived right up the road from TA Ranch, and his story is crazy. And so you have all of these singular characters that we really also encourage people to kind of read up upon, because this is what Western movies were built on, these stories. And there's another great show too on Netflix, and it's Wyatt Earp. Have you seen the new Wyatt Earp series yet?
I've only watched the first episode, actually.
Okay, keep going, because I think it really kind of sets the tone of what was happening at that time, right? Because like cowboy now, thank God that Western is kind of like back in trend right now, but cowboy was a dirty term, and cowboy's kind of been a dirty term, and it has kind of denoted a certain class and of people, right? And it was ruffians and it was outlaws, and it's not kind of what we know it today. And so that's kind of the big thing is, and with the Johnson County War, is that battle and that fight that occurred really kind of set the tone about small business rights and breaking up monopolies that were kind of existing.
I've watched both Tom Horn's movies that came out, and I was a big history buff, and then I started learning more about the history up by Buffalo, and I look at Open Range. That was roughly, could have been somewhat there, and I like the history in the movies you're talking about, because Shane is a great movie. I agree with you. So I really do. And And it's interesting too because you can go back. I mean, I know they settled in Montana, but you can say Lonesome Dove coming. They had to have came through that area too, because
Oh
in
yeah.
and the history that you have in the West, Buffalo. We have our history, which in the Black Hills, which is interesting because it's mining. But I grew up on a ranch. I have more interest in the cowboying history, the Johnson County War. When I drove through the TA ranch when we drove in there, and I was just like, you have a vision when you're going to a place, okay? And then when we drove in there, I'm going, holy shit, this is cool because all your buildings were like historical. I mean, I
Yeah.
said, I know people live there, but I'd like to see these buildings because it like takes you back to an age where there's honor, there's chivalry, there's the cowboy way of life, and you drive in there. I felt that even though we were going to a fire and ice festival, but you can bring in which is interesting too because the Fire and Ice Festival, you felt like you're in one of their longhouses, but if you take out the Fire and Ice people and put in a bunch of cowboys, then you feel like you're in a cowboy area. You know what I mean? Your
Yeah.
building there is amazing.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, and that's a big thing is it's very important for us that we keep the integrity and authenticity of that homestead. And so when you look at the property, it is labeled after all of the original buildings that were there. So it's the ranch house, the cookhouse, the bunkhouse, the milk barn, the granary. Those all had those functions in 1880 to 1910, right? And so we've as much as we possibly can have restored these buildings to what they looked like at that time with also kind of like the modern amenities and accommodations. And what we get a comment all the time is people are like, if you go inside, the rooms are actually huge. The spaces are huge, but it doesn't look huge because this is big country. I mean, it's
Yep.
big, Montana's big sky country, right? But this is too. And you just can't get an idea of the space, right? And the relation of space. Because when you go inside, you're like, man, these are big spaces. And then outside, you're
Mm.
like, this is a tiny dwelling. How do people live in here? And
Yep.
that's exactly what was happening at that time. And the other thing that I try to explain to people is that this was kind of like the Taj Mahal of 1880 Wyoming. I mean, the fact that they had windows, and even when you look at the logs, they're square logs. There was
Mm-hmm.
only one mill at the time that was cutting square logs, and they had to ship it all the way by cart from Cheyenne because there was no railroad. So every window with the glass, with the wood, had to be shipped. Here we go again. Okay, 1 second. Hey, I'm doing a recording, and so I'm gonna have to go find a different space to do the recording. Hey, Grandma. Mm-hmm. Here, let me introduce you to my grandma.
Yeah, this is cool.
This is my grandma.
Hey,
Hey.
what kind of recording are you doing?
I'm doing a podcast. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. That's Grandma.
Hey,
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
By the way, everybody
I'm
has
great.
decided my uncle is leaving for a couple months to go back to New York. And so tonight is the night that they're having this go-away party, which they planned 10 minutes ago. So that's why everybody's arriving unannounced.
You're good. This is fun. This is fun.
Okay,
This
perfect.
We don't die rusty. We wear out. We don't rust out.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was like, you gotta fly by the seat of your pants here. Anyway.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
but here's the deal. That's ranch life too. Like
Yeah.
you don't know what's going to happen from day to day.
Exactly, and that was kind of the other thing. The other key piece of all of this is like we're a working cow ranch, so we kind of explain to people like, yeah, we do these events, we do lots of different things, and the whole of it is we do ag, and so it's kind of crazy because sometimes we do have to put things on hold because we're like the irrigation system isn't working, or we have to go make sure that the water is running and getting heading for the cows or whatever, or we have to go feed something, or I had to shut the restaurant down. There was one night, it was a Sunday night. I
Yeah.
had 6 people coming. It was a really slow night, and I had a horse that tried to jump a barbed wire fence and didn't make it. And so they're coming, and I'm calling them, and I'm trying to put this horse in a trailer because I was like, I'm the only person on the ranch to get this horse in this trailer. I can't feed you. And that's what people don't understand is like they come and they're like, what do you mean you have to shut your restaurant down? Mm-hmm. You're a restaurant. Your job is to serve us. And I think that's the whole point is like, well, yeah, I know, it might be, yes, of course we would love to have a restaurant. Of course this is a passion project for us because it's all about food. And we consider ourselves ambassadors of our lifestyle and of, ranching and farming. We want to show people how important this is and how important it is to support farmers and ranchers and how it is to eat. And it all goes back to like what we want is sustainability, right? And that's what homesteading was all about. And that's why it goes along with our Wyoming territorial theme. And that's kind of why the Viking Nordic thing kind of goes in there too. Yep. It's because it's a hard life. And we want to make sure that we're going to be able to take care of ourselves and we want to have good food. And so that's why we do all these different things.
And like I said, I grew up on a ranch. I was there for a long, long time. And then I decided to go to Black Hills State and be an Indian Studies major and a history major at Black Hills. I went there I hate to date myself but I went there from 86 to 88 to play football. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Oh, that's so cool.
But I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I went and worked on a ranch in Australia for a year too. So the ranching lifestyle and it'll always have my heart. So, but you guys have a restaurant out there then, or is that during this?
Yeah. So we do in the summertime. Over time we've had to diversify because every ranch knows there's highs and lows, right? And so that was kind of our first stop is once Grandma and Grandpa kind of restored everything, they had their friends who were like, can we come up? Can we come visit? Oh. And then they kind of had this imagination that maybe they could just do this for fun. And this is like kind of like a dude ranch type of experience, right? You don't just do that for fun. You kind of have to like go whole hog. And that's kind of what happened to us. And then when the grandkids, all of us grandkids kind of like went off to college. And I think our families just didn't want us to feel pressured to have to come back. I mean, they wanted us to like have our figure out what we wanted to do. And if we ended up back here, that they were good with that. And so in that interim period, they were like, okay, we're not going to push these things. The one thing that they did do was keep this restaurant going because my mom loves food. She loves to cook food. Everybody in her family loves food. And that was the big thing is making sure that, and also Wyoming is a desert, a food desert. Okay. I don't know if everybody's like come and been here, but there are just sometimes like the food is, fresh food is far and few between. And I love the Wyoming Food Coalition, and we try to really support the Wyoming Food Coalition because they're supporting farmers who are trying to grow here in Wyoming. So a lot of our produce actually comes from like Papa Joe's, who has greenhouses. So we get everything that's produced in a greenhouse, right? But it's fresh and it's local. And so that's kind of what we want to do here with the ranch as well, is make sure that we're producing our own food. And not to and this is our crazy showing, is like, we're not big preppers.
Yeah.
We don't have a bunker, okay?
Yep.
But I'm telling you what, we're just making sure that if anything happens, we know we can make everything ourselves. So my mom loves canning. They love doing everything like that. Don't ask all of the other stuff that she's making. Some of it may or may not be. There's a secret room, okay?
Yeah. We had lunch there when we were there. Can like people come out and eat, or is it just for the dude people?
Yeah, no, people can come out and eat. Absolutely. And the only problem right now is like we're booking out, and we have so many special events that we're packed on the weekends. So we're pretty much closed like Friday and Saturday. But if you come out on a Thursday or Tuesday or something like that, or even on a Sunday, we'll be open.
Because I like to go to Cody. I take pictures of the bighorn sheep down in the North Fork and the South Fork and do this and that. And I would just wait to eat till I got to Buffalo then, and come out and see you guys.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. Come out anytime. And okay, so by the way, on the food, so all of our food vendors fell through. They were like, too
Yep.
cold, don't want to show up. And that happened to us 3 days in advance. So we cooked all of that food ourselves because we had to, not because we wanted to.
Well, I'll tell you, it was good, and that is amazing.
Oh, thank
I
you.
have to give you kudos. So, what else do you have going on maybe throughout the summer, or is something that other people would want to come over and see?
Yeah, so we work on a couple of other events throughout the years. Some that are with different organizations, but other ones that we kind of put on is we do Heritage Days, which focuses on Wyoming history and Western heritage in general, history and heritage. And so it's kind of like reenactments, but primarily what it is what we're considered a living history museum because in some ways we're still doing the things that they're doing in 1883 or 1893. And what we want to do is kind of show the modern integration of the old school Western arts. And that's kind of what our heritage and Western heritage is all about. So how did these old school techniques get into something that we can kind of incorporate today? And that's what our Western heritage event is about. And we also kind of do exhibits. So like for this upcoming year, we have a tintype photographer coming. And he's doing side by side. So we, with our historical societies here in Buffalo, we've done direct descendants of these historical figures in our county, right, who were a part of the Johnson County War, who were really integral in 1893. And their descendants who are almost replicas, right? So we've got Margaret Smith, who was named after her great-great grandma, Margaret Smith, who was a part of the Occidental, and they look bioidentical. And we have similar types of those people. And so when you take a tintype photo of a person, all of a sudden you're transported to that time and you just realize, oh my gosh, I am this person. Like modern technology is insane because there's just this realism and the tintype, you just are like that. You just feel removed, right? And then when you take a tintype photo of yourself, you're like, I am my descendant. And so that's kind of the stuff that we do is just a lot of things that we do with our nonprofit, with our foundation to promote Wyoming tourism and history. And like I said, we're always doing something new. We always invite people to come out and kind of experience the history and come out and eat. We do a lot of, and I know it kind of sounds kitschy, but homestead tours. So it's just teaching people, like we have our own bees, so we make our own honey. We make our own wax candles. We're doing goat milking. We're doing alpine packing goats. And for the ladies, this is turning into great ways to do yoga retreats. But the guys are like, how much does that goat carry out of the mountains? And we're like, well, it carries like 5 mats and my water bottle. But anyways, yeah, so we do, and also like teaching people how to make, different types of medicines out of herbs. We work with our local apothecary to kind of make different treatments and stuff like that. And that's kind of the stuff that we're passionate about, right? Is that weird, like homesteading, not doomsday prepping, but stuff like that, that you get to have fun doing.
I hope my wife doesn't listen to this because she'll be over there all the time because she's very hippie-ish and holistic and she would love your apothecary stuff too. I mean, I'm just joking here, but I mean, would be very interested in that, and I would be too. But yeah, so that's very, very cool because I was talking to actually Joe Ernst. He's the director for finding riders in the PBR. I just did an episode with him, and we were talking about the cowboy way of life is coming back. The like we were just talking earlier, the chivalry, and in learning how to live off the land the way you had to because that's all you had. And I love that you guys are doing that. I know I'm older than you, but being so young as you are and bringing this back to the ranch itself is it's uplifting because I don't want to ever see this lifestyle die. I don't. And talking to people like you guys makes me feel, it makes me feel at least a little closer to go back home. And I have I like I said, I grew up on a ranch, but it was my dad worked for a rancher and I worked for him and too. But I mean, I'm just saying it's fun to be outside and it's fun to be in the ranch life. I mean,
Yeah.
I shouldn't
Oh,
say fun. It is fun though. It's a lifestyle.
well, the thing that what happens for us is it's tough, right? And there are days where you're like, man, you're just begging to kind of make it through. And what happens is like when we get on horses, right? And we have like a pretty small size ranch. I mean, altogether the ranch is about 8,000 acres, and really it's not, the ag really doesn't make us really any kind of money. But when you're sitting there and you're in the hills and you just see for miles, I mean, when you get to the top of our hills, and we have teepee rings right at the top of our hills that were used to ambush the Bozeman Trail, and you can kind of see what they saw, and you can see 80 miles to Pumpkin View, which is like in the next town over. And you just have this like insane, beautiful, amazing feeling of freedom. I mean, it's just miles and miles of just expanse. And I've never felt in my life, you feel lonely, but in a way that's just so nice. It fills your cup, right? And before I came back home, I lived in Colorado. And so when you went into the wilderness or any kind of hiking trail, no matter where you went, you were with 10 people. And some of them had flip-flops. And you're like, why?
Yep.
You're like, where are the bears? Where are the natural predators?
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's the big thing is like for here, for my generation, and I'm like on the last end of the millennial generation, right? Our generation feels starved for experience and authenticity and having kind of like connection. Even though we have like social media and we have all of these different things, sometimes you feel really lost and like you can't make that much of a difference and an impact. And the reason why I returned home to the ranch was because you're in such a big world. Sometimes all you can do and be satisfied with is just making your corner or piece of the pie a beautiful place. And you can show people how you imagine the world to be when they come to your home, and they can see kind of like the peace and the surrender and how you envision like life could be. And I'm not saying like returning to a time where there's no internet.
No.
I'm just saying coming to a place where you're just welcome, right? You're welcome and you're, loved. And we want to show you the beauty of the land and the things that we're doing and why we're passionate about it. And so that's why we're doing this. It's tough and it's hard, but I wouldn't give it up for the world,
And it's also genuine people. It's genuineness. It's accepting of everybody. That I mean, it was just like I said during the fire and ice. But I have to ask you here, because when you come out of the bottom by the river and you come up by the houses, and you get up and you have the view of the bighorns and everything over there. I mean, that has to be wonderful to wake up in the morning.
Oh, it's insane. Our neighbor is like a mile and a half down the road. I mean, it's great. And that's the other thing too, is like you wake up and you have the bald eagles in the morning. We have owls. We've had these owls. We know them. The animals around you all the time, right? The land is around you all of the time. And that's just the beautiful thing about it, is that it's harsh, gorgeous, and beautiful. And you always kind of feel like when I'm here, I feel alive, because you just get to see everything kind of in real time. And I think that's why ag people and rural people are very special, is because animals get sick, animals die, they do it all the time. We have had our best horses, break their legs in freak accidents. And so in some degrees, you just have to realize how to find a way to stay in the moment and appreciate life in the moment. And then when you do have time to celebrate, how to do it in an awesome and fantastic way where you're like burning a ship and drinking meat at the same time. Yeah. Buffalo's gorgeous. I mean, the bighorns are gorgeous. This whole area, the people are really special. We're fighting for it. I mean, Wyoming, we really, our tiny town and community is really trying to come together. to be like, this is what Wyoming ethics are. This is the cowboy ethics. It's about love, and it's about camaraderie, and it's about sticking together. And I can't tell you how many neighbor feuds I've had over water. Because water's still a thing out here.
Yeah.
And also have our neighbors kind of leave a gate open, because they're pissed off or something. But I'll tell you what, if that same exact neighbor, if I was in a snowstorm and went off the side of the road, he didn't pass me by. He pulled me out. Yep. He's always checked on me. I haven't had a single neighbor, no matter what happens, they always check on me. They always stop by. If I've ever had a problem, they always bring, they're people that you can count on, even if they're pissed off at you, right? And how many times that we can say that in this political environment about loving your neighbor? And sometimes you just don't talk about politics at Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, you find a way. You find a way. But that's the whole point. It's about, community is so much more. It's about loving people. And that's what Wyoming is you don't get to pick who your family is. You don't get to pick who your neighbor is. But you have to find a way to love them. And that's what the Viking Festival is. That's how we see this ranch. And that's what we want to promote here. So.
Yep. Well, I love that train of thought there, because I believe exactly what you say, and we're not going to leave people in the back need or anything like that. We grew up to help everybody out if they needed the help, even if you, like you said, you can't pick your relatives at times, or you can't, this kind of thing. But I know you have to go to a going away party here, but we always ask one question at the end of the episode, and I didn't even fill you in on what that question's going to be to think about.
Okay.
But we always ask the question, what is the good life to Katy?
The good life?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. A good horse, a good dog, and good bourbon. And that's it.
All right. Well,
sometimes it takes 2 or 3 glasses.
Well, I want to just thank you. I hope we get together again sometime, and we'll be passing through Buffalo. You might be getting a text and saying, "Hey, what's going on?" And can we come out and have a conversation?
Oh my gosh, we'd love to have you. Come out anytime.
Well, that'd be awesome. But so I just want to say thank you so much again, and you guys are so friendly, and you're so thoughtful, and I appreciate this conversation, and I appreciate you guys.
Oh, thank you so much. And we appreciate you taking a chance on a very cold January day. And we're just so glad. I'm so glad I got to meet you and your wife. You guys are amazing.
Well, thank you very much. So, Don't Die Rusty Nation. As always, keep chasing your dreams, being the best you, and don't die rusty.
Thank you for listening to the Don't Die Rusty podcast with your hosts, Rick Hanson and Ricky Bruley. The Don't Die Rusty podcast is written and produced by Rick Hanson and Ricky Bruley. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook at Don't Die Rusty. You can rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You might find your review read on a future episode. Got a question for the Ricks? Send us an email at don'tdierusty@gmail.com. It too could be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Don't Die Rusty podcast wherever fine podcasts are downloaded.